Good evening and welcome back to our 20-second segment. Yes, 20-second segment of What About Your Story Saturdays, brought to you by Lion at Heart, Discovering Courage and Greatness Within, live here on Facebook. We are now on Chapter 9, A Life Neutralized by Prayers, Attaining Equilibrium in Life. Yes, attaining balance in life is necessary. And why? In everything, we need to acknowledge God and deny arrogance because God gives us all. He owns the world. He rules the
That's right.
world. Therefore, no one can boast of
Amen.
his own achievements compared to God's standards. God did not
Mhm.
create people to own people. So remember, no life is more important than others. Tonight's episode is very special because we are featuring my good friend and mentor whose life remarkably fits this chapter. I admire this person so much because he lives a life of deep faith. You could listen to this man for
Yes.
hours and never get tired of him for wisdom. Wisdom is what he's full of. So tonight, we must learn a great deal of how he lives a life neutralized by prayers. This is Sky Hayes, your main host, and I am delighted to introduce to you two of my lovely co-hosts, Sylvia Morales and Gigi Donahue, who are both founding members of Lion at Heart Freedom Journey Movement. Merry Christmas to you, Sylvia and Gigi. How are you guys?
I feel fabulous, Kai. Merry Christmas to all, and I'm so excited to be here co-hosting with you. I'm certain that we are going to have a wonderful time learning some great wisdom from our special guest, right, Gigi?
Yes, I agree, Sylvia. And yes, Merry Christmas to everybody, to you, Kai. What a great privilege to join Kai and our most awaited guest for
Mhm.
tonight. Merry Christmas again to everybody. Back to you, Kai.
Thank you, Gigi. I am so thrilled to have you both here with me tonight. Let's get the ball rolling. Are you ready, Sylvia?
Whew. Ladies and gentlemen, we are all honored to introduce you to an incredible human being who has been a great mentor for many of us, following his lead in the world of entrepreneurship. He is a wonderful husband to a beautiful wife by the name of Stephanie, with several beautiful children, and we will learn more about his family later on. Gigi, why don't you do the honor to bring in our special guest?
Yes, I am actually very, very honored and very excited. Absolutely. Without further ado, allow me to bring to you a self-made millionaire, a man after God's own heart, the man of the hour, Seth Mulder.
Yay!
Welcome, Seth.
Hey, Gigi, Sylvia, Kai, thank you so much. You know, you're making this introduction. I'm thinking, I want to meet this guy. This guy kind of sounds like the guy I'd like to meet a guy like that. I want to follow up the guy. I'm like, and then you introduce me. I'm like, did they get the wrong bio? Did they get the wrong bio? So, thanks so much. Oh my goodness, you know, if there's one thing I could do in this life, I mean, you're gonna get me really emotional at the beginning is, man, if there's anything that my wife, that my children, that my grandchildren, or anybody who ever knew me, and I shouldn't say everybody because you know what, I've got haters, but that's okay. I pray for them too. If there's anything I could ever aspire to do, it would be to be a man after God's own heart. Oh my goodness. So, wow, you just raised the bar for me. Thanks a lot, Gigi. I got to go back to work. I'm grateful to be with you. Grateful. We're gonna have some fun tonight.
Absolutely, absolutely, Seth. I gotta tell you, I witnessed you and actually watched you during a training. What an inspiration to me. Your impact was tremendous, and I was so new at the time. Seth,
Yeah.
we have 6 questions prepared for you by our 6 beautiful lionesses. These are the members of our lioness circle: Riza, Emmy, Anne, Christiane, Rana, and Beth. And we shall begin with Riza's first question. Riza, are you ready?
Thank you, Gigi. I'm ready. Seth, I'm so honored to ask you the first question. Seth, tell us your story. Who is Seth Mulder?
Well, everybody who goes into the post office here in the United States asks the same question. There's this guy, right? They got a picture behind the counter. Have you seen this guy? Do you know Seth Mulder? And it's become a real problem in my life because people are always trying to turn me in for something. No, Risa, good to be with you. Wow. Who is Seth Mulder? Some days, you know, and can I just say, I'm so privileged to be. Uh-oh, I got muted there. Can you hear me now? Am I back?
You're back.
Yes, you are back.
That is one way. That's just one way that they're going to keep me to the time limit today. Is they're just going to mute me. Like when my time is done. So I'm privileged to be with you lionesses, and I appreciate that question, Riza. 70% of the people who are probably listening to this live or recorded are women. And identity is destiny. And when you women, you know, me included, you know, from my perspective, who am I? And I'll answer your question. But when you women, when you as a woman or you as a person, an individual, find out and realize who you are, wow, it changes everything. Who am I? Well, first and foremost, my identity, which determines my destiny, I'm a son of God. Period. That outlines, that puts me into a framework which is scary because of all of the potentiality that means, right? Your identity can help determine where you're going to take your destiny. So I'm absolutely a son of God. I'm a believer. I am a husband. And you mentioned my beautiful wife, Stephanie. Wow, what a godsend in my life. She's my companion, my love, my great counselor, my best friend. I'm a father. We have 10 beautiful children from ages 31 down to 3.
Wow.
31 to 3. You counted them, count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yes, 10 kids. Okay, and the question is, you're all wondering, is like, well, the question you're probably really wondering is why? Well, we don't have time for that today, but because I love kids. Wow. I mean, why blessed to be able to do it? And goodness gracious, we're going to do it. We're going to do it well. The real question some of you are thinking is, like, are they done? And all I'm going to say is TBC, to be continued. So we have 11, pardon me, 11. We have 10 at present, 3 grandchildren, a fourth little baby grandchild's coming to us in May of next year. So privileged. That's who I am. I am a pilgrim. You know, I'm a pioneer. I'm in the same situation probably as many of you. I'm a survivor. Oh my goodness, I am a survivor. I have had things in my life happen, and I know we're going to talk a little about how prayer affects and really balances out our life, fills a void that we couldn't have otherwise. I don't know where I'd be. I don't want to know where I would be if I didn't have prayer in my life. If I didn't have that identity, and starting at the beginning, right? The foundation, know who you are. The Greeks, you know, it's on the temples in Greece, folks. It says, know thyself. Your identity is your destiny. And when you get a hold of that, it makes all the difference. And my identity as a son of God has led me to be the best possible husband I can be. Number one role in my life, right, is to be next to being a son of God and honoring him is to honor my wife. And getting that, the most important thing I could do for my children. And my wife Stephanie and I both had some challenges, you know, previous to finding each other. We both went through through marriage, children, and divorce. Wow. And that rocked my world. But the single best thing that Stephanie and I can do, you know, as we had you know how people talk about yours, mine, and ours kind of thing. And in our perspective, they're all ours, right? But sometimes people on the outside, it's well, which one's yours? Or which one? Well, yours, mine, and ours. We have 10 together. I had 6, she had 2. We've had 2, and TBC, to be continued, right? And counting. The best thing I could do for my children, is to show them how a happy and fulfilling marriage works, right? And yes, even after divorce, right? So that's a little about who I am. You know, I don't know, are we getting into my story yet, or am I supposed to wait for another question?
You can go ahead with your story.
Okay. And we'll know when I'm done with my story when they mute me. All right. When I just, like, when you hear my mouth moving, but there's no more words, then they're going to jump in and we'll go to the next question. But, you know, my who I am has led me to what I want to do. Right. They really build on each other. And when you don't get the first questions, the first foundational questions answered, then it makes it harder to have alignment, to have passion, to have the power, right? That power from on high to hopefully bless you in your life to accomplish what you want to accomplish, and really what we might call the pursuit of happiness. So my wife leads to our children, which is leading us now into that wonderful age called grandchildren. So we sent gifts to all of the grandchildren, to our 3 grandchildren. We have a 3-year-old, 2-year-old, and a 1-year-old, okay, grandchildren. And to see our married kids send us pictures. They live out of state. One of the reasons I want to be an entrepreneur is so I can travel and I can go see my grandkids, and we can do that. We have that ability. That's part of who I am and what I want to accomplish. But to see the pictures of those grandchildren with their toys, right? You know, just, man, that lights up my life, which leads me to my story. When I came into the world, I'm 46. I turned 46 this year. My dear mother, God bless her, and she's still with us. She was over for Christmas last night. My mother was a single mother. The package that came into the world, me, that put my mom into the category of single motherhood. And I actually never knew my biological father, never spoken with him. It's just part of my life that's not really a part of my life. And so when I came along, my mom was a single mother, and bless her heart, she decided to move home because she was away from home in the big city. And she moved back home, back out, out of state to back home where she grew up with my grandparents. And they were really angels in her life and angels and angels in my life. So I grew up on a ranch in Eastern Oregon. My grandfather, with the help of my grandmother, Uncle Bob, homesteaded several hundred acres in the Eastern Oregon, I don't know what to call it, Oregon desert. It's not super green. It's not the beautiful side of Oregon that you're all thinking of. It's kind of more like the Idaho kind of a side, in that mid-terrain, a lot of sagebrush. But they homesteaded a couple hundred acres. My grandfather's dream was to be a horse rancher, actually, a horse breeder, horse rancher. Never got to that. That required another level of economy, another level of money. But he made it up that ladder and worked up. We were cattle ranchers. And so I grew up on a farm, kicking manure when I was really young, and learning everything from my grandfather. He was such an impact in my life. And I will tell you, my grandfather and my grandmother on my mother's side have both passed on. And when I crossed the veil, when I crossed this veil of mortality into that next immortal realm, I promise you, they're first on my hit list, just to thank them for the great impact they made on my life. I was an unexpected package, but I was, in their eyes, the greatest treasure. And And I hope I can give that to my kids. I've strived, one of the things I strive to do is bring that magic, and boy, I fail every single day, but bring that magic to my kids' lives. And I want to bring that magic to my grandchildren's lives, because I know what an impact it made on my life. My mom subsequently ended up married, and so I got a dad in my life later. And I have a wonderful dad who raised me kind of in that next part of my life, and grew up in a lower middle class family. My parents both worked. I was one of those kids that came home from school because I had a key, right? I had a key around my neck from the time I was in elementary school, frankly, and junior high, and that's how I got in. My parents both worked to put food on the table. My dad was going to school, working at least one job, if not two jobs. My mom always worked a job as long as, I was, until I, became an adult and moved on. Really appreciate all the hard middle class, blue collar work that they did. They were over for Christmas yesterday, just musing about those old days. Seth, and this is my mom, again, transferring family, my mom, transferring this knowledge to her grandchildren, my children, as we were post-Christmas, presents, post-Christmas dinner, just musing on the couch and talking, and my mom talking about fairy tales in a book that she had when she was a kid, and saying, when your father was younger than you, those stories, just priceless. That is family legend. When we didn't have the money. In fact, that Christmas, Seth, do you remember that first Christmas we moved here to Utah? We didn't have, Dad and I were both out of work, and you had two gifts. It was me and my brother. I was about 9 years old, and he was, I was probably 8, and he was probably just born, or 1 or 2. And there were two gifts that we got in our family that year for the kids. One was a bicycle, a used bicycle that somebody gifted to my mom so that my dad could fix it up and give it to me. I had no idea that it was used. I just got this incredible bicycle, for Christmas, and I put some miles on that. And somebody gifted a stuffed animal to my parents so that they could give it to my toddler brother. First Christmas here in Utah. Subsequently, all that led to me becoming an entrepreneur. Frankly, I'm going to make a big jump fast forward, but I became an entrepreneur after spending about 10 years in the corporate world. I wasn't an entrepreneur at heart. I don't know, what just wasn't me. I was not that kid that was out always there hustling and selling. I was the kid who wanted to have friends, was very active. I was a good kid, but I had belief issues, like belief in myself. I think I was scared to fail. Not scared, I was really active in sports and stuff, but I was really affected by my social structures. I'll just say that. A lot of fear associated with not having friends, or not having, the popular friend. Well, not necessarily just popular friends, but not fitting, not knowing my place. Identity is destiny, right? And I had those friends who knew. It's like they just knew, and I didn't. I really was just kind of, when you don't know who you are, it's like you can be pushed around by every wind of doctrine, right? By what people think of you. And so being an entrepreneur that didn't really come naturally to me. I needed to settle into corporate America, work there for 10 years, get kicked around, climb the ladder, think I'm going to be, in that executive floor someday, realize that there are 37 people in front of me who are all lifers, right? And they want the same, they're fighting, or climbing for the same 2 seats, the same 1 seat I'm climbing for. And that led me to becoming an entrepreneur. And so I've been an entrepreneur for about 20 years. I've raised my kids pretty much, from the time they've been in elementary school, most of them, or junior high, they've known that dad is the entrepreneur. And I'll tell you, the number one reason that I wanted to become an entrepreneur is because I wanted to take care of my family. I'm ambitious. Okay. I want more. I grew up, again, lower middle class. My room was in the basement. My parents rented a home, multiple homes. in the same town, in the same kind of 4 city blocks for 20 years. We would just move, when there's move, somebody's, selling the home, we'll move out of that one. My parents rented homes because that was what was available for our economic level. I concrete floor in the basement, right? And so I grew up ambitious because I wanted more. I didn't know how to get it. And my dad worked a lot. He found time to make me important, but he was a worker. He was a worker bee, right? And was willing to do that for a family. I really am so grateful to him for instilling a work ethic. He instilled a work ethic into me. And I wanted to give that to my children, but I wanted to do it also on my terms. So I didn't want anybody else saying, you got to clock in at this time and you got to clock out at this time. Or, you need to be here and you need to travel here. If I'm going to travel, it's going to be because I want to travel. And so I was, at some point in my 20s, I realized I want to be an entrepreneur. I want more out of my life, and I want to raise my kids. I want to be there to raise my kids. And I know we're going to talk about some other things, but that's a little about my story. I'm championing entrepreneurs. I personally run an online wellness business, and I train entrepreneurs all around the world. I'm major supporter and promoter of telling your story and doing it on social media. So that's a little about me. Did I answer the question, Riza?
Yes, Seth. Thank you for your amazing story. You are so inspiring to everyone. You're so incredible.
Well, thank you. I received that. Years ago, I would have said, oh, no, I'm not. Hey, when somebody pays you a compliment, you can receive it humbly, right? Too many of us are like, oh, no, I'm not. Actually, my story isn't very unique, Riza. Actually, hey, when I do that, when I deflect all of the good that you're so kind to put it on me. Number one, I'm going to keep my head in this hemisphere. Okay. I'm keep your head in this hemisphere. But at the same time, I think it's so important for us to accept that. So I accept that. If I didn't accept your gratitude or your compliments or your support of me, then I'm actually denying my identity, right? If I believe I'm a son of God, if I believe I'm called to be an entrepreneur, and I believe it is part of my calling, I am fulfilling and developing the talents that God put in me. Some of them are latent. Amen. Right? Being an entrepreneur is helping me express that. So if I deny the fact, right, I don't accept your compliment, I'm denying the whole reason I'm here. And that's misalignment. So I accept it. Thank you. And if you can't tell, guys, ladies, I'm trying to tell you, don't be so hard on yourselves and start accepting those compliments that people pay you. Thank you.
Thank you, Seth. That was wonderful. And it's one thing I'm going to keep in my little sign here on my bulletin board. Your identity is your destiny. All right, now we're going to go and start asking you some wonderful questions. So get ready, okay?
All right, let's do it. Hit me with your best shot.
All right. Now I'm going to get our lioness, Emmy, from Texas. And she's going to ask you the first question. Go ahead, Emmy.
All right, Seth, you are magnificent. One of the greatest mentor that I have in this entrepreneurship business. I've learned so much from you. I've been touched with your story. I wanted to cry a lot, but I have to keep it myself tonight. Well, you're the best mentor. Tonight, I get to ask you the second question, Seth. Do you believe that our lives must be neutralized by prayers, and why? Please share your opinion to us.
Okay, so I'm reading this book, shameless plug, right? Lion at Heart. Can you all see this? Okay, here's the book, right? So I'm reading this book, and it's like a life neutralized by prayers. And I'm going to tell you, at the first, what does this mean? I've never heard it put like that. Because I'm thinking like neutralize usually is you want to neutralize something bad, right, in your life. So I'm like, well, wait, this is something good. So of course, I mean, you can't read a chapter heading like a life neutralized prayers and go to the next chapter. You're like, say, what does she mean by this? And then you read, what does it mean to neutralize? Oh, we're talking about balancing something out, bringing something into equilibrium. Oh, are you kidding me? Absolutely, Emmy. I believe in a life neutralized, balanced, brought into equilibrium by prayer. I love the quote. If I just snag a little quote from this chapter heading, talking about identity, actually, or talking about destiny. Paul Brady, quote, "Show me your prayer life, and I will show you your destiny."
Oh, beautiful.
Right? So kind of tying in what I said, identity is destiny, right? Listen, if you are an heir to all things, right? If you are a prince or a princess, then what is your destiny? Every prince or princess is destined to rise and take their royal place, to take the throne, okay? As a son or daughter of God, what is my destiny? What is your destiny? Well, I read it in the book, I read it in the word. My destiny is to be a joint heir with Christ in all things. Literally, God has in store for us all that he has. That's what the scripture says. I take it literally. So understanding my destiny, understanding my identity gives me a comprehension of my destiny, what God has in store for me. Now, to this quote by Paul Brady, "Show me your prayer life and I will show you your destiny." The way I interpret this is, so you've got your identity here and here's your destiny. Show me your prayer life. The prayer life is the work. A life neutralized by prayer, a prayerful life, a life lived on by prayer is the methodology. It is the day-to-day, the boots in the mud. It's the trench work of fulfilling your destiny.
Wow.
As I was reading, also, just I couldn't help but have this thought. You know, quote, "No one is spared from obstacles." Here's why you need prayer. Here's why I need prayer. No one is spared from obstacles, adversities, trials, and hardships. Next page, quote, "Make prayer a routine." And I'm going to tell you what came to me. What came to me as I was as I was reading those words was the idea that don't make prayer, here it is, make prayer routine, but don't fall into the trap of routine prayer. Okay? What I'm saying is prayer is a foundational habit for a believer. Okay? Prayer is a foundational habit. It is a routine. It is part of something into me. And God bless my mother. Probably don't have time for the whole story, so I'll give you the condensed version. Coming back to my mother, coming back to prayer. So one of the winters that we're on the farm, I don't know I don't remember the circumstances, but nobody was there to feed the cattle except for me and my mom. So maybe my granddad was in town, my uncles, nobody. It was me and my mom. I'm like 5 years old, 6 tops. Okay, so let's just take an average 5.5. I'm 5.5 years old, folks. It's me and my mom, and our job is to feed all of the cattle. And so my mom gets on the tractor, hooks up the hay trailer, loads the hay bales on there, okay? And then the two of us jet down the old country road to the pasture on the corner, okay, in the cold. And now, if you realize it's just the two of us, you can't, and what happens when you're feeding cattle, you're going to drive the tractor and trailer and dump hay off as the cattle follow you. so that the hay can be spread out kind of in a line, all right? And the cattle can spread out. You don't want just this one central area where all the cattle are going to be fighting, right? Because you're not going to spread out. You're going to have problems. They're not all going to get the same amount of food. So the problem is that there are only two of us. And I can't pitch the hay, and somebody's got to drive the tractor. You know where the story's going. My mom teaches me how to drive this old Massey Ferguson tractor. She puts it in gear and says, you put your hands on the wheel and you just go. And it's like a gentle slope down this. I am terrified. I remember the feeling right now. I have this ingrained in my mind. I know exactly what pasture. We are going down at the bottom of this pasture. There's actually a pond full of a watering pond. Okay, big old pond full of water. And I just know that, I don't want to go in that pond. I was scared to death. And my mom said, okay, if there's any problem, you just take it out of gear and it'll stop. I'm okay. So she goes back. We start to move. She goes back to the trailer and I'm scared, freaking out. I take it out of gear and we stop. She's like, Seth, she comes back to reteach me. Hey, let's do it again. Put it in gear. If you get scared, and I just am frozen in fear. I'm scared of moving forward. Yes, there is an analogy. This is metaphorical to your own life. I didn't know how to move forward. I'd never been there. I'd never had that power. I'm on a tractor, ladies. All right. That is power. I'm in unknown territory, and there is more that is being asked of me than I've had the training, than I've had the experience to do. After several times of me just not going forward, my mom says, listen, if you need to pray, just ask Jesus to help you, right? And boom, we're throwing that tractor into drive and we're moving. And I'm still terrified, folks. I'm still terrified. But my mom tells the story that we completed the work, and she comes back to me and she can just hear me out loud. Maybe she could hear me from the horse trailer, but I'm just like, oh, Jesus, because I'm sitting there praying away.
Amen.
A life neutralized, a life balanced, a life empowered by prayer. Show me your prayer life, and I can show you how you're going to work out your destiny. Prayer is an absolute foundational routine in my days. There are days, by the way, I don't want to pray. I got hit recently with one of the most powerful trials in my life. Like, it dropped me to my knees. It burdened my heart like almost nothing ever has. I'm talking within the last 10 days, folks. I just wanted to curl up in the fetal position. And I'm going to tell you, I didn't want to pray. Sometimes there is that feeling inside, I don't want to pray because how do I even move forward? Here's how you move forward. The times that you don't want to pray are the times that you need to pray the most. And if you've invested into a routine, okay, not into routine prayers, but into prayer as a routine, and you can really seek out, to reach out and talk to God.
Wow.
Make a difference in your life.
That is so profound. Well, Seth, it looks like I answered one of Anne's questions. So Anne is going to answer just the other question. She's from Ohio. So Anne, ask one question because he already answered the one about prayers.
I know that. Oh, Seth, first of all, Merry Christmas. And
Thank you.
with all the wisdom that you are imparting in this Zoom call, it's just like, I'm loving you already, okay?
Thank you.
Well, I love when you claim that you are a son of God and a believer, and how you honor God. And I'm sure you're a man that doesn't have a small, you have a big, not just a mustard seed kind of like faith, but it has you have a bigger faith in God. So would you care to share a moment in your life where you felt defeated?
Yeah. So we talked about family, right? And from the time I was just a little boy. Family has been everything. And as a teenager, of course, my friends were so much more important to me than my family on a day-to-day basis. Such an influence. God put great friends in my life, my entire life, but especially my teenage years. I'm so grateful. Some of them are like family to me, and their families were my families. We vacationed together, good times, bad times, hard times. So family is everything. So I'll take you to about 10 years ago. And what I do, I share this with you because there are people who need to hear my story. There are people, by the way, and we'll talk maybe a little about this later, who need to hear your story. But I recognize that my story can help you with your story. And that is so powerful. So I've become more open to share like the dirty details, right? That we all go through. So I was so excited about getting married. After I did a couple of years in the ministry overseas, I came home from the full-time ministry, and my next ministry was, it's time to put together a family. And so I ended up meeting a girl, and we got married a few months later, and we had 6 kids. She actually had 2 children when we met, and I ended up becoming their dad, isn't that so interesting that when I met her and those 2 boys, they were 7 and 4 at the time, Stephen and Jordan, and the first time I met them, they opened the door, and I jumped on the floor, and we started arm wrestling, became great friends. I ended up adopting them. They became my sons. And I felt like God prepared me for that experience. Well, from the time I was 6 years old, right? There is meaning. There's so much meaning in our lives. And usually we don't see the meanings, until we connect the dots after all those things happen. But so we were married. We had 4 more children. So we had 6 children. And without going into the details, right? Because, you talk about situations, you talk about divorce, you talk about families, you talk about trials, and there can be all these tangents and the details. I just want to stick with what I think is relevant to maybe somebody out there. I ended up going through a divorce, and I remember being overseas. In fact, coming home, I was building our family business. I came home, I was gone for 10 days or whatever, or a week, and I was on my way home, and I called my wife, and she said, "Don't come home." I said, "What do you mean? I'm in San Francisco." I can tell you, I was in San Francisco airport. "Don't come home. I don't want to be married anymore." And that rocked my world. That led to, I ended up going home because I'm like, well, this is not how you exit things. So I'm coming home. And that led to a lot of discussions, a lot of heartache, a lot of crying, a lot of prayer. And frankly, if you want to know the truth, a lot of unanswered prayers, a lot of prayers that didn't get resolved immediately. I didn't get that closure. We all want that closure. God, here's what's going on. I need this. Oh, there it is. Thank you. And move on, right? That's how we, no, it doesn't work like that. Most of the time, frankly, and especially on some of those big issues, they don't just get resolved. And that led to several years of marital hardship, trying to work things out, trying to save my marriage, trying to save my family, right? And several years later, Christmas time, I'm alone in an apartment, in a condo. My children are with their mother. And it just feels like the world is kind of crashing down on you, or at least what was important. What was really important to me was my family, my wife and my children. And frankly, I was willing to do anything. I was willing to change me. And this might get a little too personal for some of you. listen, you don't like me, right? But I know so many people have gone through divorce, and that's why I feel like I'm called to freely talk about it. You'll notice in me, no judgment, okay? No judgment. But, speaking facts, I wanted to be married still, right? I didn't get to make that choice. It takes two people who want to be married to make it work. It only takes one to say, okay, right, we're out, game over. And I just remember being so defeated because I had built up in my mind that this is it, right? You happily ever after, meaning that it's one and done, folks. All right. And it doesn't always work that way. And I really lost myself. I was willing to change myself. Hey, whatever it takes, I'll give up whatever. I'll give up my personality. I'll change my clothes. I'll give up my business. I'll give up my hopes and dreams just to make this work. And that's where I found myself. We're still married, but we're in a separation period. These things don't just resolve themselves overnight. It's not like, hey, you made a decision, it's gone. Even when you think it's going to be fast, it's not. And it was literally years, multiple separations and in and out, and it was just so much tugging on the hearts and watching my children. Dad, are you going to be going camping with me this weekend? And I'm going to tell you, that whole struggle put a lot of strain on my relationships with my children. I always strove to be there. I was dedicated to that, but it wasn't easy. And I prayed a lot. I just want you to know I prayed a lot. And most of those prayers weren't answered. I didn't get to get back with my wife. Didn't happen. It wasn't in the cards for me. And I had a good friend, a spiritual mentor in my life who said, Seth, the number one thing, the first thing I'm going to tell you, I appreciate all that you're wanting to do. I can see that you care about your wife. You love your wife. You love your children. Here's what you need to know. God wants Seth Mulder to be Seth Mulder, not somebody else. And when you're not that person, he's not pleased. Does this come back to the first thing I said? Identity is destiny. And so there's times, I'm going to tell you, I did not want to be on this earth. I just said, God, I'm done. Now, I didn't want to kill myself. I didn't have that. But I did wish that I could just be done, right? There was just too much pain. A lot of time on my knees, a lot of time praying, a lot of time laying down in my bed, just bawling my eyes out. A lot of times not getting the time with my kids. Hey, if you've been a single parent, you know what I'm talking about. Mothers or fathers. My wife now, Stephanie, can speak to that because she was a single mother for 6 years raising kids, right? So we both have that perspective, and my heart just goes out to anybody who has gone through that or is going through that. And I will tell you today that many of those prayers were never answered the way, I never got those answers that I wanted. I prayed more prayers than I got answers immediately, but that's the nature of being a son and not being the father. It's just like when my 3-year-old and my 5-year-old comes to me with a problem, they don't get everything they want because they don't fully comprehend it. But prayer got me through it. I will tell you that, because there were enough answers along the way. Sprinkled like salt. You're the salt of the earth. Sprinkled like salt.
Right.
To keep me going.
Wow, that's really profound, Seth. Wow. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of people that can relate to that, and you really, really put it right there. Family is important. That and your identity is your destiny. I'm going to keep all these quotes, and I'm going to make sure that we live by them. Now, since for our time purposes, we only got one more question we can ask you, and then we're going to pass on to Beth. Our lioness from New Jersey. So Beth, if you can unmute yourself and if you can ask him your question.
Yes, Sylvia, thank you so much. Hi, Seth. I really wish we have more time because I enjoy listening to you, Seth, and I want to know more. Actually, I even took a lot of notes. Okay, my question is, What are the few messages that you wish our viewers tonight can take away, especially those who've seen to have lost hope and faith in the midst of their adversities in life?
Wow. Well, and I'll tell you, I've been really blessed. I've been really blessed. All of those prayers had purpose. There's a great Garth boy. I'm a country boy. I am a country boy. I grew up listening to, Willie Nelson and Johnny Cash, and Garth Brooks has a wonderful song. You all know it. Have you ever heard this song? He talks about some of God's greatest gifts are unanswered prayers. What I would leave you with is this, a couple of thoughts. None of those prayers are unheard. Some of them may seem to be unanswered, but there are no prayers that are unheard. My testimony, my experience, my witness is that God is there more than we know. He walks with us more than we know. And one day that will be revealed to us. So, just keep going. Know your faith. I knew this. One of the sermons when I was going through my divorce that really was powerful. I was living. Here's the deal. Stop dragging along and start living. Like, I got really passionate about knowing how I could be Seth Mulder. And that was a revelation to me. Are you kidding me? I will tell you, I walked out, I walked out of that situation, or I should say I walked out, I found myself in that situation and I walked forward and, I embraced me, not in a self-centered way, not in a selfish way, but in a connecting with what was important to me. So many people want to know, what does God want me to do? Right? I used to ask it to myself all the time, right? God, tell me what to do. God, will you please let me know? Like, I would get so debilitated and not wanting to move forward because I didn't want to displease God. I wanted to do what he wanted to do. Stop worrying so much about what God wants you to do and do what you feel called to do. Do what you feel passionate about. God wants you to be you. So start living.
Wow.
I went at the time, I went and bought 3 pairs of cowboy boots because that was part of me that had, I kid you not, I bought 3 pairs and then I bought a 4th pair, of cowboy boots and started being me. I bought all my kids cowboy boots because that was part of my heritage. It was important to me. I started dancing again. I used to be, I shouldn't say, I don't know that I would go as far as saying I used to be a dancer, but I danced. Country dancing in high school, country swing. And we would go out every week or every other week with the boys. We'd get dates. We'd go out. We'd learn. I wasn't necessarily great. I remember the day my grandmother said, I said, Grandma, how did you think about my dancing? And she's like, you were pretty stiff, Seth. You were pretty stiff. But I'll tell you, I became me. I started living. Stop asking what God, do you want me to go dance? Right? If God doesn't want you to dance, you know what? Parents have a way of just influencing you and saying, Seth, I don't think you should be dancing. God could do that. But it was part of me. That was inspiration. You're looking for revelation and you're ignoring the inspirations that have already been placed in your heart. And I started following those. And I started, I bought the dance CDs because if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it well. And I started practicing with my dear daughter, Kate, who's 20 this year. But at the time she was about 12 years old. And so we started dancing and she loved dancing. And every once in a while, right, we would dance. But I started getting really serious. So we would dance, I'd be in my apartment and she'd come over when I had daddy time and we'd dance almost all the time. We just had so much fun. And then I'd put the kids in bed and I'd go to the dance club on country night. And I'd do it on Tuesday and Thursday and sometimes Wednesday and sometimes Friday. And sometimes, I was going 2, 3, and I'm building an international entrepreneurship business, right? I'm a single dad, but I am dancing because I love it and I'm expressing me. And I will tell you, Months later, I'm looking across the dance floor, and I know pretty much everybody there. I know so many of the girls there because I'm a regular, and I've gotten so I'm not stiff. I'm actually pretty doggone good, right? And I see this beautiful woman with a beautiful smile, and I say, I don't know her. And I go and ask her to dance. And what's interesting is that woman had been praying. That woman was a woman who had had her life neutralized by prayer as a single mom to move out of state with no job set up because God called her to move from Arizona to Utah. She had a lot of pushback. A lot of people who cared about her said, no, you shouldn't go. You shouldn't go out on your own. You shouldn't go do this. And she said, I feel like I need to do this. And that woman knows how to pray and get answers. And there she was dancing that night. And we met, and I started dancing with her, and I got her name, and it was Stephanie. And we started dancing, and 7 seconds into this dance, I'm like, Stephanie, you can dance. I'm telling you, that woman got rhythm. And that was the first time I met her. We courted for eight months to the day. 8 months to the day from that day that I met her, we got married. And she became my eternal companion, the woman that I'm going to walk through the eternities with, the woman that I am raising our children together and our grandchildren together. And one of the things, and we're talking about prayer, one of the things that she brought to our relationship and our marriage is every time we pray, if we're in the same room, she's going to come to me and she's going to hold my hand or put her hand on my shoulder, and we're going to bow our heads together, and we do so much praying together. If we're going to take communion or the sacrament at church, I'm feeling her hand come in mine. If she's across the kitchen and we start the prayer, I know by the end of that prayer, I don't think it's sacrilegious. God tells us to move. You can pray and move at the same time. She's still moving across the room to make sure that we connect, because we can now have a life as a couple, as a man, as a woman, Adam and Eve, right? Coming together as one and having our lives knit together in prayer. I would say live your life. Follow the inspirations that come to you. Stop asking God what he wants you. Ask him, but then go and do something. If he wants to tell you to do something different, he's got a pretty good way of just giving you those little nudges, closing some doors, opening some others. And the greatest joys of your life are not behind you. They are absolutely 100% in front of you.
That was a very powerful and timely message now, especially that we're starting a new year, Seth. I say, let's live our life. Let's all take that message to heart. So back to you, Sylvia.
Great. That was wonderful. Now I'm going to want to do some dancing for 2021. We've been cooped up for too freaking long. I said, so now after the holidays here, I'm gonna do a party. If that's what it takes for me to do some dancing, I'm gonna do that. Okay, we did take some good lessons, and I want to thank you so much, because some people may have gone through divorces, but others have gone through deaths. Some people have gone through loss of jobs. And those are the top 3 things that people are going through that is very, very hard, and where we're constantly praying, asking God to lead us the way. Death, loss of a relationship, or loss of a job. And so now I want to pass this on to Kai to close it out. I thank you so much, and go ahead, Kai.
Wow. Thank you, Sylvia. Seth, you blew us away. And thank you again for gracing our humble Saturday live show, touching the hearts of the many, and most of all, allowing us to know you well, this well. Oh, goodness, those stories. Thank you so much. for being raw and real with us tonight. It was an honor to have you here with us tonight, my friends. And in behalf of our Lioness Circle, tonight we have served humanity once again in our special way by giving our best to bring our viewers a season of hope on this Christmas time of the year. We all know that many are wounded. We are all patching holes in our lives, but we're also called to be shepherds, to help and inspire others who have lost hope. So if you have not read my book, Lion at Heart, a leadership, personal, and spiritual growth book, please go to www.kaihayes.com and order your copies now. And I promise you, it will be worth the read. And finally, allow me to leave you with this message. God didn't invade time to give us Christmas. He invaded time to give us Christ. Have a happy weekend to all of you. And thank you again, Mr. Seth Mulder, the man of the hour. Back to you, Gigi.
Seth, thank you so much. Your story relates to Lion of Heart book. Amazing, inspirational, very, very meaningful. I'm telling you, this is a privilege and an honor to be able to interview you, to co-host this segment. Our lionesses are all very, very honored and privileged, and feel privileged to be here tonight. Thank you so much. Sylvia?
Well, thank you.
Oh, and Seth, we are all honored to have you here on our show, and I'm so proud of all our lionesses for participating in this series. I mean, you all did a wonderful job. I wish we could have asked more questions, but we're short of time. And most of all, I want to thank you, Kai Hayes, who believes in us and always providing value to the audience. So thank you again, Seth, and everyone. Lioness, let's all shout out.
Thanks, Seth.
Thank you, Seth.
Love you, Seth. Thank you.
You're so
Thank you. Merry
fast.
Christmas.
Bye. Merry Christmas.
We love
We'll
you.
go dancing with you.
We're gonna dance.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Seth. Thanks.
Thank you so much.
Thanks,
Definitely.
everyone.
We love you,
2021
Stephanie.
Thank you, everyone. Love you all. Thank you, Kai Hayes. Thank you so
Thank you.
much,
Amazing
Kai.
times.
Thank you,
Thank
Kai.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks,
Thank you so
guys.
much.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye. Good night. Bye-bye.
Good night.
Good night. Bye-bye.
Now, thank you.
Bye.